go.
Hello, family. I want to welcome you all to our Wednesday noonday Bible study. I want to, before we pray, just transparently share. I'm asking for prayer in this season of uncertainty. I too have anxiety. Just the amount of people that are suffering. Right now, almost every day, there's some call coming in regarding someone who's been affected. Someone who's going through, our person have a funeral out of town on Monday coming up. And so just the anxiety of trying to encourage and love on folk and yet being a human being myself and is not easy in this season. So I'm asking for your prayer. Secondly, the key to studying the Bible is not just reading it. And I hope as you're tuning in, you understand that's not what we do. That's not what Bible study is about. God, if he took the time to put it on paper, we should take the time to try to understand what he's saying. We're going to cover high level in some areas today, and those who may be watching more frequently. But to study means to take your time, and we do something that's different today. We do line upon line and precept upon precept. Most people today have never really read the scriptures completely, and most don't understand some of these books. So as we go through, the principles that we utilize in this text apply to us today. So we're going to open up in prayer, and we're going to get right to it. Judges chapter 11. Gracious Father, we bow today before you. We thank you so much for a study of your word. It's precious. It's a light. It's illuminating. It gives revelation. It changes how we think. It helps us with our decision making. So today I pray for our guests online, to our family online, and to those few who are here with me even now. Consecrate me and allow me to share this word in season. In Jesus' name, amen. So we are looking at, by the way, there are two books that I've written, and I don't share books just to be sharing books. But these I've been told are good books. One is Improve Your Thinking. And then the other one is, Why Don't You Want to Pray? Many today may not be strong in prayer. I wrote this book for younger me in encouraging people on having an effective prayer life. So I've been told that both of these are good books. So they're on Amazon and they're available here at the church. But looking at our text, we want to do a quick recap as we do every week. Would someone read for us Judges 11, 4 through 6?
And it came to pass in the process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, Come and be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon.
So we see here as a quick recap that the children, some of God's people are in trouble. They outcast this guy named Jephthah. He was a stepbrother. His mom was a prostitute, and his brothers cast him out. But now the trouble has come. They're inviting him in to help save them. And so would someone read 7 and 8 of Judges 11?
But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, Do you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, This is why we have turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead.
Isn't it amazing that we all can make a decision and say what we're not going to do? I've cautioned people over the years to be careful on what we say we won't do. Because life has a way of putting us in situations that can make us eat our very words. And wisdom says, don't do that. You're going to see this guy, Jephthah, in this text, or Jephthah, whichever you prefer. He is going to make a decision that's going to break his heart for the rest of his life. But the children of Israel are making a decision to appoint this guy to be their leader. Read from me then verse 9 through 11, and then we'll get right into the crux of our study in verse 12. Someone, 9 through 12?
Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, If you bring me home again to fight against the Amorites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head. And the elders of Gilead said to Japhet, the Lord will be witness between us, if we do not do as you say. So Japhet went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and leader over them. And Japhet spoke all words before the Lord at Mizpah.
Okay, here's this text. We see here that he's agreed to go ahead and step up and be their leader and to serve. Now, and an enemy has arose. This enemy is called Ammon. These are the Ammonites, and the Ammonites are people that technically is an enemy. And as we said, the Ammonites came from Lot. Lot was Abram's nephew, and Lot's daughter slept with her daddy. And this group of people, Ammon, rose up. Also, Moab, which is down here in the southwest, is a group. And Lot's other daughter slept with her daddy and got pregnant. And the Moabites have come about. So we've got two enemies of Israel. And this is just a depiction of their location. So now we get into the heart of it. So Jephthah is now the leader. He's about to strategize to deal with this enemy, Ammon, to the east. And so he sends a messenger to them, and he says, we've got some technical difficulties. We'll just continue. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, what do you have against me, personal pronoun that we said last week, that you've come to fight against my land? He's calling it his land. And the kings of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took away my land. This guy is saying when the children of Israel, led by Moses, came up, they took the land, they took some of their land from them. This is not a true statement, but for whatever reason, he rose up. This morning, I said to myself, sometimes people will be on assignment to just give you a hard time. You're driving home, you're minding your own business, you wake up in the morning, you go to work. Somebody on assignment is birthed to give you a hard time, and you're thinking, what did I do? Well, you didn't do anything. Just sometimes people on assignment from the enemy to harass us, to give us a hard time. And here it is, this enemy, Ammon, this king, has rose up for no reason to give them a hard time. And so here it is in the text. He says here, because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took away my land from Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now what he's saying is Arnon is technically in this region, is right here. He said this land here was ours, and you all took our land. First of all, it was not his land. The land belonged to the Amorites, and God had gave a very explicit charge for the children of Israel not to mess with the people of Ammon. And they did exactly what God said. They didn't bother the people of Ammon. And so here it is in our text. Back to it. The king of Ammonites answered the messengers of Japheth, because Israel, on coming from Egypt, took away my land, from Arnon to the Jabbok to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peacefully. He's asking them, give me back my land. Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites. He said to him, thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab, this land right here, down to the west. He said they did not take this land, but here it is, God gave them this land. We're going to find out in just a minute why this land, which actually belonged to Moab, was taken from them because they harassed the children of Israel. Sometimes you might want to be careful who you mess with. Because the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, asked permission to travel in this territory, going to the land God promised them. The kings of these nations were belligerent and arrogant, and then God allowed them to get smacked down. They got a beat down. Someone then read for us verse 15 through 17.
And said unto him, thus said Japheth, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. But when Israel came up from Egypt and walked through the wilderness unto the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, then Israel sent messengers unto the king of Edom, saying, Let me, I pray thee, pass through thy land. But the king of Edom would not hearken thereto. And like manner they sent the king of Moab, but he would not consent, and Israel abode in Kadesh.
So Israel requested permission to come through. Remember, they're coming from the south down here in Egypt, and then they're moving up north. But because kings had territory, it was traditional to ask permission, just like you and I can move freely in America. But if we go to Canada, even though it's right next door, it's right there, you go up to Michigan, Detroit area, and you can roll right into Canada, you really can't. You've got to go through their border system to go in that country. The same thing, Mexico, if you go to San Diego, I mean, you can literally just walk right into Mexico from San Diego. But if you're going to drive, you're going to need to go through customs and get cleared to do that. And so the children of Israel are leaving Egypt all the way down in the south. They're coming up, but they need permission from this king to enter his territory as they're going to the east. And we're about to see what transpired. Verse 15. And said to him, Thus says Japheth, Israel did not take the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when he came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness. Remember, they spent 40 years doing what? Wandering in the wilderness. They crossed the Red Sea, and they came to Kadesh, but they had to stay there because this roadblock, if you will, from the king of Moab. Someone read verse 18.
Verse 18. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab and camped out on the other side of Aram. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab.
So in other words, they're having a hard time getting through. Imagine trying to go from one city to the next, but the mayor of that city says, well, because you're a different kind of people, I'm not going to let you pass. And as you see, this is Ar here, and Arnon is over here to the east. Verse 18. So they stopped at Kadesh, and it's like the Lord is saying, okay, work out another plan to get where you're going. Verse 18. Then they journeyed through the wilderness. They didn't want to, but they had no choice. They journeyed where? Through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab. That's taken a whole lot longer journey. And arrived on the east of Moab, the east side of the land of Moab, and camped on the other side of Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for Arnon was the boundary of Moab. So here it is, family. God's own people have what's called a roadblock, but the Lord is still involved in the situation. And here's the key. When you have a roadblock, you have one or two choices. Either you're just going to run through it, or you're going to assess, and I say to us as Christians, this is normally a time for us to tap the brakes and ask the Lord, should I go to the left or should I go to the right? One of the greatest challenges all of us have is decision making when it comes to big things. And when we want what we want, we tend not to be as patient. We'll just ramrod in, we'll just go. No, I submit, be patient. Allow the Lord to have some say and work this thing out. So here it is, we're about to see there's a whole lot of communication that's going on between Japheth and this king, but family, the talk is about to stop. This is called diplomacy. And it's two sides trying to assess a peace deal. When there is no peace accord, you know what happens next. You're going to war. And so they're really trying to work this thing out. They're continuing. Read for me 19 through 22.
Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, Please let us pass through your land to our country. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited the country. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from Arnon to Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan.
So here it is, family, verse 19. They're still in this diplomacy mode. They're trying to work this thing out. And this is really a recap to Numbers. If you really want to know, go back to Numbers chapter 20, and you can read this story to get a better perspective on it, to really study and understand. But then they journeyed to the wilderness. They went around the land of Edom, land of Moab, and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab, and camped on the other side of Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Here it is. Israel then sent messengers, so they could not come into Moab. So now they're asking another king, the Amorites up here, since we can't come this way, would you allow? So they had to come all the way around here, family. And now they're asking, can we come into your territory? Well, guess what this other king is about to say? Well, he says it. They sent king to Heshbon, but Heshbon, verse 20, did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. Now, you may ask the question, we're going to see in a minute, why wouldn't they want them to do that? First of all, they didn't have cities and streets and cameras and lights like we did today. They had, when you get this many people, think about it, 2 million people. Who wants 2 million people coming through their territory? That in itself is insane. Plus, if you got some crops, some cherries, some tomatoes, some pears, some apples, what happens to those trees with 2 million people coming through? And then you got some cows and some sheep. Who's to say one of those kids or one of those men won't kill some animals and cook them? So he did not trust them to pass through his territory. So Shion gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz, and he fought with Israel. So here it is. He went ahead and got his people mobilized here in this area called Jahaz. Now, they're over here to this side, just trying to peacefully go where God told them to go. Family, let me tell you something. Just because God tells you to go somewhere doesn't mean it's going to always be easy. Sometimes the Lord wants to strengthen us, and in so doing, he's going to allow some roadblocks. There's a term I call having spiritual calluses. Soft me could go outside and grab some bricks and do some work, and my hands will blister up. I've worked enough with my hands outside to where I now have calluses. So I'm able to go outside and grab and do outside work, and it does not affect my hands. God does not want what I call soft Christians. Soft Christians can't go through a whole lot. Soft Christians, the moment trouble arises, they fall apart, they flake out, they quit, they give up, they run, they hide, anything other than stand. And God is trying to teach them how to stand, how to stay. Now notice, so he's getting ready to fight with Israel, according to the last part of verse 20. Now, whether or not they're ready, they don't have a choice. They didn't ask for this. But notice, God is setting this thing up. God is with them, but they don't know the outcome. They just have to go in faith. Family, that's the way the Lord is. He'll set situations up for us. He'll be with us, but he's going to let us do our part to play. And these baby Israelites, these baby soldiers, remember they just come out of Egypt. They're not trained in special warfare, but they're going to have to learn how to fight in a hurry. Verse 21. And the Lord, here it is, he's now getting involved. They get ready to go to war. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Shion and all his people into the hand of Israel. Now, family, this is a trained, skilled army, the Amorites, and they're fighting an unskilled, untrained army, children of Israel. Amen. How in the world can a trained army get beat down by rookies?
All right.
Well, when the Lord is involved, you're not a rookie. You may not have any experience, but you will fight like you do. Right. Didn't we not see David do that same thing? He was unskilled in warfare, but he didn't fight like a rookie. He fought like a veteran. Family, God puts skills and insights in us to do things that even we say, man, did I do that?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. In the Lord, you can do it. So back to the text. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Shion and all, notice this now, and how many of his people? all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. Family, this is why it says, if God be for you, he's more than the whole world against you. And in this case, him being for them allowed them to defeat an enemy they were not really qualified to defeat. But family, the qualifications is never in us. The qualifications are always in who? The Lord. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. Can you imagine that news flash? Major army defeated by rookie army. Can CNN talking? How could these pilgrims traveling in sandals in the desert, wandering around in the wilderness, they got this old man, 80-year-old leader leading them. He doesn't look like a whole lot. And yet, come game time, they just showed up and beat them down.
Yes, sir.
If this was a basketball game, it would be like some high school team beating the Los Angeles Lakers by 70 points. That's just not supposed to be, family. And yet, when God is involved in your situation, what's not supposed to be can be. That's why the passage says, all things are possible to them that believe. Verse 22. So they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from Arnon, which is down south, to the Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan River. Verse 22. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, disposed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And are you to take possession of them? This is what Japheth is saying. He's saying, the Lord gave us this land. That you're now saying is your land. No, this was the Amorite land. This was not your land. This was the Amorite land. We didn't even want to be bothered with them. We just wanted to pass through their land. They said no. Then they came out and tried to fight us, and God let us beat them down. As a result of beating them down, we got all this land. So this land is not yours. And yet this guy is saying, yes, it is. So someone read verse 24 and 25. This is about to get very interesting.
Verse 24, will you not possess what Shemosh, your God, little g, gives you to possess? And all that the Lord our God has disposed, dispossessed before us, we will possess. Verse 25, now are you any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, or king of Moab? Did he ever contend any against Israel? Or did he ever go to war with them?
Now, Chemosh I don't know what Japheth is doing right here. Chemosh is really the god of the Moabites. So I'm not sure why he's bringing them up. We're going to see what the intent is in just a minute. But this little g god, and in the Bible, there's always a differentiation between a fake god and then the real God.
All right.
In scriptures, the real God always has a capital G, and the fake, pretentious, phony gods always has a little g.
Yes, sir.
So Japheth is referencing this phony god, Chemosh. The reason he's bringing this up, family, it is believed during this time, and we should believe it too, that when you have land, God gave it to you, or your God gave it to you. So he's saying, if Chemosh is the man, if Chemosh is a mighty God, then you'll be able to get this land since he's your God. But if our God gave us this land, then you're not going to get this land. So family, we're going to have another war coming up in just a minute between the Ammonites who wanted the land, which was not theirs, it belonged to the Amorites, and the children of Israel who earned the land because they beat down the Amorites who wouldn't let them pass through their territory. So back to the text. He asked the question. He says, will you not possess what Chemosh, your God, gives you to possess? In other words, if he's a real God and he gave it to you, then you're going to have this land. But he says this, and all that the Lord, our God, has deposed before us, we will possess. So he said, okay, we're drawing the line here, family. If Chemosh is the real God, then y'all going to defeat us and y'all get this land. But if our God is our God, you're going to fight us, we're going to beat you down, and we're going to keep this land. So both of them have a chance to stand down, but it's not. Then Japheth, who has read his Bible, has a little bit of understanding. He references this guy named Balak. Balak was a king, and he asked the prophet Balaam to curse the children of Israel. Well, Balaam wouldn't do it. And he's saying, are you not any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab? The Moabites, they tried to defeat Israel. They've got the prophet to try to curse Israel, but we know what happened to Moab. They got beat down too. God defeated them. So here it is, verse 26. While Israel lived in Heshbon, its villages, and in Ar and its villages, and all the cities that are on the banks of Arnon, 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time? In other words, this is what he's saying. He's saying this land has been in our possession for some 300 years. And now all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're going to come up and try to punk us and take our land. He said if the land was yours for 300 years, why wasn't it your land? Why all of a sudden now? This is like we've been living at 5621 Buckskin since 2002. And that's like Kim Bryant coming up. And we got the deed, we paying bills, everything is in our property. We've had it since 2002. He comes up and says, this is my house. He has no deed, he has no history, no nothing. The thing is, he just wants our house. Well, family, you know I'm not going to just give up my house, especially all this money we've spent and put in it and labor, painting and cutting and trimming, and then just to give it up to some stranger. And family, this is just since 92, or since 2002. He's saying how many years?
300.
Some 300 years. Can you imagine someone rising up out of the blue, knocking on your door, and saying, listen, the house you have, I want it, it's mine. Family, most of us, now a few of you might just give up your house. Most of us, and y'all from Texas, so some of y'all be strapping. You're probably not going to give up your house easily. And in this case, they're not going to do it. So here it is. This thing is about to jump off. This war, this fight. Someone read verse 27 and 28.
Wherefore have I not sinned against thee, but thou hast done wrong to war against me? The Lord, the judge, be judged this day between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon. Howbeit the king of children of Ammon hearkened not unto these words of Jephthah, which sent him.
Japheth is giving a chance. Japheth said, listen, you know, okay, Shamash is your God. The Lord God is ours. And we got this line drawn, and I'm asking you to stand down. This is our land. He's saying, hey, let it go. Family, you know what's amazing? Satan can get you so hyped up and pull you into something that's going to get you a beatdown. And what's interesting is he pretends to like us, but then he hates us. And we know he hates us because the end result doesn't match the hype of what he's trying to give us. And he's done climbed in this king's head. He's got this king all hyped up. Family, he's not thinking about the children that's going to suffer because daddy's not coming home. Granddad's not coming home. Uncle's not coming home. All these women are about to be widows, and they're about to lose everything they have because back then, when you defeated a nation, you took everything the nation had. So the houses was about to be taken, the cows, the sheep was about to be taken. The women were not going to have any husbands, any brothers, any sons, any granddads, etc. But notice verse 28. But the king of the Ammonites did not what? Listen to the words of Japheth that he sent to him. Japheth is saying, please don't do this. Listen, Moab came against us, they got a beat down. The Amorites came against us, they got a beat down. And now you Ammonites are about to rise up against us. And if God is really God, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get a beat down. So he did not listen. Now it's cracking and popping, family. Someone read verse 29 through 31.
Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Japheth, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpah of Gilead. And from Mizpah of Gilead he passed over unto the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said, if thou wilt without fail deliver the children of Ammon unto my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering.
Yes, sir.
Now, family, this is not a good idea, this vow he makes, because you know who's going to be the first one to come out and meet him? His daughter. and he's going to sacrifice his own daughter by making a foolish vow. Family, we have to be very careful that the kind of promises we make, and make sure that what you're promising, you've sought the Lord. He was just running his mouth, hoping to do a thing, but here it is, family. The children of Israel didn't offer sacrifices of people.
No.
So it's like he got a blend of so on one hand he's talking about the Lord, and on the other hand he's got a blend of serving false gods and making a sacrifice. But here it is though, verse 29, then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Japheth. If you read Judges, and we're gonna in a couple of weeks we're gonna be talking about a guy named Samson, you see this same statement, and you're gonna see it throughout the scriptures. It says, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. In other words, they would be a regular dude, a regular person, in their own strength and might. But when God came upon them, they were able to do exceeding abundantly. They were able to do crazy things, like when the Spirit of the Lord came upon David. And so it came upon Japheth, and so he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed on to Mizpah and Gilead. Family, now notice this now. This guy, he's down here, but he goes all the way up here. He's about to possess, now this is not their land. He's about to possess all this land up here, in addition to the land here. None of this was theirs, but because Moab was tripping, the Amorites was tripping, now Ammon over here is tripping. He's about to get their land too. And so he went from Gilead to Mizpah. Of Gilead, he passed on to the Ammonites. Verse 30. And Japheth, here it is. This is stupid, family. This is as stupid as anything you can see in the whole scriptures. Verse 30. And Japheth made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, verse 31, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the Ammonites, shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. He's saying, now family, what's crazy is that normally when the men went off to war, the families, when they heard they were coming, would sing and dance and do tamarines and songs. Remember David? When David killed Goliath, the women was singing and said David killed his 10,000, Saul his thousands, and King Saul got mad because David was ascribed 10,000, him 1,000. Well, it was custom for the women to come out and celebrate. Well, if he was going to have a great victory, it stands to reason, family, that somebody in his family was going to come out and what? Celebrate. So why in the world would he make this vow? He says whatever comes out, whatever is whoever, comes out from the doors of my house. Well, where are the animals? The animals are outside. So this guy, without even thinking about what he's saying, is somebody, whoever comes out of my house first, if God gives me this victory, I'm going to offer a burnt offering. Well, what's a burnt offering? Well, what's the first word? Burnt. Y'all know what burnt chicken is? You know what burnt bread is? Those of you can't cook, you know well. You burn stuff. He's saying burnt offering. He's going to burn up whoever comes out and greets him from his house. Family, that is one of the stupidest statements you will see. It is demonic. You will see in the entire book of the Bible. He says, when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Notice this, verse 22. So Japheth crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them. Here it is, family. And what happened? And the Lord gave them into his hands. And he struck them from Ar to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, as far as Abel Kerim. So here it is, family. He's fighting them from here all the way over here. He's gobbling up, family, all this territory and beating them down. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. God gave this man this victory. So family, here it is. This is sad, 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 sad. He's gotten this victory from the Lord, but he made this vow. And family has now heard, because you know when you're in war, you want to know, and they had sentries set up in different cities that would bring back word. So let's say they were fighting here, they would have messengers that would run here and say, let the families know they're okay. And then a messenger from here would go here and go from etc. Because they didn't have mail like we do today. And they didn't have texts and those, so messengers gave the word. So somehow the word has been passed on to Jacob's family that he's safe, he's coming home, and God has given him a great victory. But family, this thing is about to get ugly. I mean, real ugly. Someone read verse 34 to 35.
Then Jacob came to his home at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines, with dances. She was the only child. She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you have become the cause of great trouble for me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow.
Wow. He's putting this on his daughter. But who made the vow?
He did.
He did. He didn't consult the Lord. He spent no time in prayer. He ran his mouth and says, if God give me this victory, well, family, God was going to give him the victory even if he hadn't made the vow. The vow really wasn't necessary. And yet he makes this vow. Verse 34, then Japheth came to his home at Mizpah. Family, you know he's happy. He's the man. His own family, because of his mama, his mama was a prostitute. His brothers kicked him out. They kicked him from his country. He had nowhere to go. When trouble pops off, they comes back and gets him. They're appointed to be a leader. He doesn't want this fight, and yet God gives him this enemy, but he makes this promise. So he's coming back home. He's excited. He's excited. He's excited. And look, he hears this music, this tambourine pumping. The door pops open, and guess who runs out? Not just a daughter, his only daughter. Now, family, why is this significant? Because in the Bible, if you had no seed, when you died, your bloodline dies. And it's ideal for Jews to have a son, but having a daughter still kept your bloodline going. The vow he made ceases his existence. So Jephthah, when he dies, there is no one to pass on any bloodline to anyone in his family. The whole history of who this guy is ceases, other than writings, which we're reading now. So check this out. She was his only child, and beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And as soon as he saw her, of course as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes. And Jews would tear their clothes back then as a sign of sorrow, as a sign of pity. The Bible calls it putting on sackcloth and ashes. They would put on poor clothes, and then they would put ashes on their head, and anyone who saw them would know they're in great mourning. Well, there was another means of showing you in great mourning. It's when you would tear your clothes. Now, family, in our culture, if you saw me on camera and I started tearing my shirt off, I got a t-shirt, and I tore off my t-shirt, you would say, what is wrong with him? Because that is not our culture. Crazy. Yes, and some would probably say, I'm crazy. But in this text, it's normal to tear your clothes. But this is a very horrible thing that transpires. He tore his clothes. He said, oh my goodness, my daughter. He says, you have brought me very low, and you become the cause of trouble to me. Actually, she wasn't the cause. He was the cause. She's the result of a vow or promise that he made. But notice he speaks the truth. He said, I have what? Open my mouth. What gets us in trouble often, family? When we open up our mouths. In 30-some years of marriage, 37, almost 38, and I say this all the time, I'm intentionally messing with my fingernails. The bulk of trouble in my house comes because sometimes I open up my mouth. Don't be judging, don't be hating, because you get in trouble too when you open up. And some things, when they come out, we just can't. We can't take it back. And he opened up his mouth, and notice what he says. And I cannot take back my vow. Family, he could have went to the Lord and maybe pleaded, but he didn't do it. He is going to sacrifice his own daughter because of a vow he made, saying, if you give the enemies into my hands, I will sacrifice as a what kind of offering? Burnt. I'm going to what? I'm going to do what to her? I'm going to burn her. Can you imagine watching that, family? It's hard to imagine watching anyone on fire, but let alone you intentionally doing it to your own family, your own child. Yes, Reg, your own bloodline. So, verse 36, someone read.
And she said to him, my father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has avenged you on your enemies, on the Ammonites.
Wow. Now, this young girl so loved. Now, I'm going to be honest. Some of us, if we told our child, baby, listen, I made a promise to the Lord that if I got a victory, if I got this promotion, I got this job, that I was going to sacrifice you, most kids would have ran. Went to Africa, went to Alaska, went to North Carolina. They would have ran. Listen, kids today run away for nothing. So, for hardly nothing. So this child had a chance to run away for something. But you know what she did? She said, my father, you have what? Opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according. Ooh. Now, this, you talking about being strong. This child is strong. She knows that she only has a few days to live, and her own daddy is going to sacrifice her by burning her up. And she is willing to do it. She ought to write a book on how to obey your parents. Because this child is totally submissive and obedient even unto what? Death. She says, now that the Lord has avenged you on your enemies, on the Ammonites. So she said to her father, let this thing be done for me. She said, well, Daddy, if I'm going to die, I just want to do what? One thing. She says, leave me alone for 2 months, that I may go up and down the mountains and weep for my virginity, I and my companions. Now, this is very foreign to us as Westerners. In this culture, being a virgin was the highest possession that a woman owned. And until she found a husband, she was married unto the Lord in a single capacity. And she says, let me 2 months go and live my life as a virgin, my companions, because at the end of 2 months, I am embracing the reality, this is the end of me. There is no one to carry on my bloodline. There is no one to further my name, my legacy. And other than this story, family, she's done away with. You and I are here because we came through some birth canal of someone. And they came through some birth canal of someone. This young lady is saying, I will not have the privilege of having stepchildren. I will have nobody, because I won't have a husband. So therefore, if he has kids, I will have no one. She said, Daddy, give me 2 months. Let me weep. Let me meditate. Let me go up and down the mountains. This is like, let me go to Colorado. We've been to Colorado, and there's nothing like going to Colorado and watching those mountains and enjoying the sea. Family, we go as a vacation. We get to come back home. This young lady, she's going on a kind of vacation of mourning. It's almost like a person who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness. We call it bucket list. And she's saying, Dad, let me make my bucket list the last 2 months of my life to go and go to Arizona, to go to Colorado, to go to Europe, whatever it is. She is talking about her bucket list. And what courage, though, this child has. And thank God she has some girls. She had some other young ladies in the community who were virgins as well that was going to mourn with her. Can you imagine going 2 months with your best friend, knowing that every day you wake up, you're one day closer to losing your friend for the rest of your days? Let's go. Let's continue. Someone read verse 38.
And he said, go. And he sent her away for 2 months, And she went with her companions and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains.
So daddy agreed. This means though that if she's going away, guess who she's not with? Her dad. So dad, she's going away to Greek for 2 months. Dad not seeing his daughter. In other words, this 2 months is if she's already what?
Gone.
She's already gone. But he's got to do this final act when she comes back. Family is one thing when someone else takes my child's life. And it's a whole nother realm, another area for me willingly to take my own child's life. Verse 39, someone read.
And at the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to his vow that he had made. She had never known a man, and it became a custom in Israel
Read verse 40.
that the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite from days in the year. 4 days in the year, I'm sorry.
So what they would do, family, to commemorate this tragedy, you know, we're numb in our country because of crime. And because there's so much going on, we hear so much, we read so much, that we can become numb. But there are some crimes, family, that can be so heinous, so bad, that you shake your head. You don't know what else to say. You're in total unbelief. You're in shock. Well, this was so shocking for the whole community that every year they would set aside 4 days to give thought to this child and what her daddy did. One thing I will tell you, I bet other men did not make silly vows. I bet you they didn't do that. I bet you they didn't make some crazy promises. I think everybody learned from Jephthah and family. Listen, we're learning. We might not do what he did, but this text says, hey, don't be making some foolish promises. Some promises that you can't keep. Don't do that. So this brings us to the very end of chapter 11. I'm kind of glad to say goodbye to chapter 11 because chapter 11 ended in a very, very bad way. And we're going to say hello, welcome to chapter 12. So would someone read the first 3 verses of chapter 12 of Judges?
And the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and went northward, and said unto Jephthah, Wherefore passest thou over to fight against the children of Ammon, and did not call us to thee? Will we burn thy house upon thee with fire? And Jephthah said unto them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon, and when I called you, you delivered me not out of their hands. Verse 3, and when I saw you deliver me not, I put my life in my hands, and passed over against the children of Ammon, and the Lord delivered them into my hand. Wherefore, then ye come unto this day and fight against me.
Now this is crazy, family. The Ephraimites, which is part of the children of Israel, they're over to the west. They're over here. They hear that Jephthah has had this great victory. Now, family, they knew about this beforehand. They could have come and participated. Now, maybe it would have been late. Maybe it would have been on the backside, but at least they could have come. But now, notice, the men of Ephraim were called to arms. So they're strapping on their weapons and going to go fight Jephthah because he didn't invite them to fight with the Ammonites. Now, this is not the stupidest thing. Family, oftentimes, when it comes to family feuds, I've discovered there isn't many things that I can think of that's just worth just fighting with my family and not trying to reconcile, not being a peacemaker. Why are they fighting? They're fighting because they didn't get called. Seriously? You didn't get called, and now you want to fight me? You want to harm me? And they said, why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you? I get being upset, but you want to fight me? You want to kill me? We will burn your, what? We will burn your house over you with fire. Seriously? You my cousin. You my relative. Because I didn't call you, you're going to burn my house to the ground with me in it? And now I've already lost my daughter. Now you tripping. You're going to come in and burn my house with fire? Japheth, though, he's calm and cool, family. And I suggest, when people acting crazy, try not to act crazy, too. Crazy and crazy equals crazy. So you don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water.
Yes, sir.
Most people fight fire with fire. No, I submit, don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. He's fighting fire with what? Water. And Japheth said to them, I and my people had a great dispute with the Ammonites. And when I called you, you did not save me from their hand. In other words, I did call you. I even left you a phone message. You just didn't listen to it. I called you. I sent a messenger to you. You didn't respond. Remember I told you earlier? Sometimes people, Jesus said this. This is interesting. He said, they hated me without a cause. They hated me without a cause. That means some people, no matter what you do, are not going to like you. Nice? Oh, she's just too nice. Mean? He's mean as a snake. No matter what you do.
Yes, sir.
If you're on time, oh, look, he's always on time. If you're late, oh, they're always, no matter what you do.
Can't win.
You can't win. I was sharing earlier in my office as I came out that Jesus said this, woe when all men speak well of you. Family, if Jesus says woe or beware when all men speak well of you, he's saying don't be tripping if someone's talking about you. Don't be tripping if people misunderstand you. I've had to embrace the reality because I'm called by God to be different. That I'm different than different than different. And people like everything to be the way they want it. When something's different, they struggle with it. I submit Japheth was probably different. The issue is not the war. They use it as an excuse. The issue is Japheth. When people find fault in you, it's not what they're pointing out that's the problem. It's you. And here it is. It's not really you that bothers them. It's something inside of them. But rather than admitting it, they're deflecting by making you the problem. Family, Japheth is not the problem. Guess who the problem is? They are the problem. And so this week, this month, this year, people are deflecting stuff on you, and it doesn't make sense. Don't hold on to that. We have issues, and when we are insecure and we have our own problems, there's an old expression, misery loves company. If I'm unhappy, then I'm going to find fault in you because I want you to be unhappy as well. And so verse 3, and when I saw that you would not save me, in other words, I called you, I waited on you, but you didn't come. So what was I supposed to do? I waited on you. And he said, so I took my life in my own hand and crossed over against the Ammonites, and here it is. And the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me? You notice what he threw in there, family? You better notice he threw it in there. He said,
The Lord.
He said, the Lord. What do you think he's telling them? You can mess with me if you want.
I have the Spirit of the Lord.
The Lord gave them into my hands. And if he gave them into my hands, even though you packing, you want to take me out, I suggest you probably go back home. I suggest you would probably go back home. Because the Lord gave them into my hand. Someone read verse 4.
Then Jephthah gathered together all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead smote them, because they said, Gilead are fugitives of Ephraim among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites.
Family, here it is. He told them, family, listen, if the Lord is with someone, whether you like them or not, whether you understand them or not, whether you agree with them or not, if the Lord is with them, it is best to keep your mouth off of them. It is best to leave them alone. Because if the Lord is with them and you fight him, or her, or them, or they, guess who else you're fighting?
The Lord.
The Lord. And family, who is going to defeat the Lord. No one is going to defeat the Lord. He told them, he said, listen, I called you. You didn't come, and now you here tripping, you strapping. He said the Lord gave them, that was his warning. They didn't listen. Family, when our little minds are made up, notice they didn't pray, they didn't seek the Lord. This whole chapter and book is about people not taking the time to pray. Not taking the time to get the Lord involved. We'll just jump out there, family, and do stuff. We'll just go. We'll just commit without giving any thought to, can I pull this off? Am I able to do it? I want you to join me even now and pray, Lord, be merciful to us in our decisions. And if we make bad decisions, oh God, be gracious to us. Because family, some decisions can cost us for the rest of our days. These men don't know. They've got minutes to live, and it's over. They're blinded. Satan will get you all lathered up, bothered, take you out, and then leave you. Verse 4, here it is. Then Japheth gathered all the men of Gilead. See, they went to the diplomacy phase. When diplomacy does not work, guess what you have to do? This is like the police pull you over, and he said, Mr. Simon, can I have license registration, please? And I'm just defiant. No, I'm not giving you nothing. Sir, would you license? No, and you start cussing and ranting and raving. And he says, sir, would you please step out of the car? You still cussing, ranting and raving? There's a good chance you're probably going to jail. And you can say whatever you want to say. You participated in your own conduct, going to jail. Here it is, family. Then Japheth gathered all the men of Gilead and what? Fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead struck Ephraim. That word struck means they what? Beat them down. That word struck means, so back in the day, I got to go way, way back in high school. We call this a sucker punch. A sucker punch is where two people were arguing and talking, and they're in the diplomacy phase. But what one doesn't know is that one person's getting tired of talking. They get tired of talking, and they're both just yapping and yapping and yapping, and this person thinks the talk is going to continue. This person, I've had it up to here. And so this person here rolls back when this person is talking and pops upside the head. That's called a sucker punch. So the Ephraimites got struck with what's called a sucker punch, and you Gileadites in the midst of Ephraim and Manasseh, verse 5, and the Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites, and when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, let me go over, the men of Gilead said to him, you are an Ephraimite. When he said no, they said to him, then said Shibboleth, and he said Shibboleth, for he could not pronounce it right. In other words, some of the men, after the beatdown, some of the men were in hiding. Now they looked like Ephraimites, they dressed like Ephraimites, but they said we're not Ephraimites. So they said, okay, say this word Shibboleth. Well, it's like asking some people in New Orleans to use certain words, because y'all know from Louisiana, y'all got y'all certain slang. Not all of you, but some of you, you got your own slang. And they said, okay, if you're not from Ephraim, say this word. Well, guess what? They said they were not from Ephraim, but they could not what? Pronounce the word. Now check this out, family, and we're done. They're now getting innocent people hurt and killed because of arrogance, because of ego, because of cockiness. Family, let's not allow arrogance or cockiness to cause not only us to suffer, but others to suffer around us. We'll continue next week. Let us pray. Gracious Father, we bow in humility. Lord, we confess that we all open up our mouths sometimes. We confess that we all say some things that we should not say. Amen. James says the tongue is untamable. It can set things on fire. It can change the course of history. Lord, would you forgive us for running our mouths? Would you forgive us for saying things that we ought not to say? Would you forgive us for making decisions about things that we ought not to? And Lord, would you give us grace and mercy? Because sometimes we all are foolish. And in our foolishness, We ask for your mercy, your compassion, your forgiveness. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless.
Good word.